right, it's more of Origins of the Gods, section 113 now, the Jigsaw Puzzle of the Paranormal. Augie C. Roberts, 1920 to 1994, was one of the first ufologists. While Roberts was interested in the modern UFO phenomena from its inception, it was his own UFO sighting in 1952 that led him to collect some of the most intriguing UFO photographs in existence. Roberts was one of the first to obtain photos of the enigmatic Foo Fighters ball of light observed by pilots and crews during World War II. Roberts changed his views about the UFO phenomenon at various times and eventually came to see it as a huge, multifaceted puzzle formed from many interconnected pieces. Back in 1984, Roberts wrote a book review of the archetype experience in an issue of the defunct magazine Would You Believe. In it, Roberts described ufology as a gigantic jigsaw puzzle of an incomprehensible size. Ufology is clearly split into so many factions, belief systems, and different interest sectors that it defies normal understanding. That is one reason skeptics just dismiss the entire UFO field. For skeptics, it's simpler just to deny it all than try to look at the pieces. In 1994, I paraphrased Robert's ideas. Imagine a giant jigsaw puzzle spread out over the land. The puzzle extends as far as you can see in each direction, and you have no idea how far it goes. Its pieces are scattered over miles and miles. No matter where you walk on the puzzle, you can't see it all. You observe people working on the puzzle in different places, and as you walk to where someone is busily fitting some of the pieces together, they tell you they have solved the entire puzzle. Others working on the puzzle in a different area come to a completely different conclusion. As you continue to walk around the puzzle, you notice that each person has completely focused his or her attention on one tiny area. Their solutions to the mysterious puzzle only take into account the small area where they are working. They conveniently ignore all the other areas of the magnificent enigmatic puzzle. Not surprisingly, no one's solution explains the entire puzzle. Only they don't know it. Robert's idea is probably an apt description of the UFO field. Contained in the vast range of phenomena are sightings of strange lights and various creatures and occupants associated with the objects, materialization of luminescent beings, bizarre sexual encounters, conspiracy allegations, psychic ability, contactees, abductions, ancient reports of phenomena, religious, spiritual, and angelic events, and many other strange things such as electrical and radiation effects. Everything mentioned in this book somehow fits into it, but most people working on this huge puzzle focus on just one area of it. That is, they confine their entire study to reports that only confirm their beliefs. For example, in 1985, Walt Andrus came to Memphis to make a presentation to a local UFO group. Andrus was then the international director of MUFON, and his certainty that UFOs were nuts and bolt craft piloted by extraterrestrial beings was apparent during his lecture. In the story's Encyclopedia of UFOs, Andrus wrote, "My initial conclusion is that our Earth is being visited by entities from an advanced intelligence in their spacecraft conducting a surveillance of life on this planet," adding, "I cannot lose sight of the probability that they could constitute some unknown physical or psychological manifestation that cannot be explained by present-day science." Despite the added caution about other possible psychological explanations at his Memphis talk, Andrus was clearly irritated when the extraterrestrial hypothesis was mildly challenged by me. Quote, we already know that they, the extraterrestrial craft, are," he shouted back when I questioned him. Let's try this again. We already know what they, the extraterrestrial craft, are. He shouted back. Here's another quote. He shouted back when I questioned him, adding, "We need to find out what their propulsion system is and where they come from." End quote. I vividly recall asking him about a couple psychological explanations, but they were completely brushed off. Quote, "They, the UFOs, are definitely physical extraterrestrial craft," end quote, was his reply. Now, what's interesting about this, because this goes along with the agenda, the Great Deception, to try to convince everybody that these things are physical. And they're going to try to pull it off, too. So remember, question it deeply. It comes from Michael Adams. I also asked Andrus about John Keel's ideas about the relationship between UFOs and the paranormal. Quote, "They, paranormal events, aren't part of the UFO phenomenon," end quote, was his reply. "In my professional career in criminal psychology, I have written many times about the psychology of beliefs. Once a belief gets accepted, it becomes self-perpetuating because of two well-known psychological processes. These are perceptual bias and confirmation bias. In their simplest explanation, these processes mean that we have a strong tendency to only perceive and accept things that confirm what we already believe. In short, we interpret events by what we already believe about reality. Those biases are the greatest impediments to finding the truth about the paranormal, as well as countless social issues. The type of accounts that from Keel that Andrus immediately dismissed are the high strangeness experiences many people have reported. These included some of the bizarre abductions, apparent paranormal events, odd glowing entities, and the like. They are typically witnessed accounts of events that are so bizarre and absurd that at face value they are usually thought to simply be impossible. Examples of high strangeness reports are the Mothman episode that took place in the area of Point Pleasant, West Virginia in 1966 and 1967. The Kelly Hopkinsville, Kentucky Goblin case in 1955, and the Zeton apparitions that being in Egypt, right? Various abduction reports. Swedenborg's visitations, and many others. We won't discuss them more here, but what is important to understand is that nuts and bolts ufologists do not like them and typically dismiss and simply ignore them. The main reason is that these reports do not fit the preconceived idea of what an extraterrestrial craft should be, nor do they conform to beliefs about what alien visitors should do while visiting and observing the Earth, looking for a needle in a haystack of needles. It is clear that the present authors of ufology is essentially a portion of a larger field of paranormal phenomena. The paranormal and the UFO phenomena have been welded together into a nearly impenetrable conglomerate of strangeness. Ufology has often been said to be like looking for a needle in an ever-growing haystack. A lot of people choose to focus on only one aspect of it all. It is also clear that the imagination, misperception, hoaxes, and psychological disturbances have influenced ufology. But those who have truly studied the field of ufology know that something extraordinary is going on, and that cases like those of Swedenborg, Joan of Arc, and Casey are related to it all. Perhaps dismissing it all is the right approach for those who have a need to deny the reality of a genuine phenomenon outside of human control and understanding. Saying nothing is there can create a feeling of safety in a world where so much happens so fast and most things are viewed as out of one's control. So be it for the skeptics. If the belief that it's all about nothing gives people comfort, then that's fine for them. The same can be said for any other belief about the phenomena. The extraterrestrial hypothesis may give some people comfort and hope for some sort of reason. As Jung suggested, people tend to believe that they choose to believe and do so for reasons they seldom understand. So once again, people tend to believe what they choose to believe and do so for reasons they seldom understand. But many of us know that something that defies our understanding is at the heart of the paranormal and UFO fields. The oddities and high strangeness events appear to be at the core of it all, as Keel and a few others have asserted. But the truth is concealed by the constantly increasing mass of strange reports, misidentifications, and hoaxes that interact with the preconceived beliefs. That is, an endless number of new reports are continually being piled onto the conglomerate of the conglomerate. Okay, let's try this again. Piled onto the conglomerate. Oh my God! Why would this happen to me? It always happens to me. Conglomerate. The conglomerate. Oh God, I can't say the word now. I'm so cursed. This fucking MS. Anyways, the conglomerate of ufology. In 1984, I related that it was like looking for a needle in a haystack of needles. Okay, so it's the conglomerate. Why can't I say that? Because the damn MS. It's a curse. Don't ever get MS, whatever you do. Don't take the jabbity jab, for one thing. And believe the core of the paranormal, the source of all the high strangeness events, as well as the mythology of the ancient gods, may well be related to the human interactions with exotic Earth-generated energy. Many of the greatest thinkers who have investigated UFOs have come to the conclusion. For example, in 1988, Jacques Vallée wrote, quote, "We are dealing with an unyet recognized level of consciousness, independent of man, but closely linked to the Earth. Indeed, plasma with powerful EMFs interacting with witnesses is clearly involved." Part 1, Section 14, Intelligent Living Plasma. In the 1960s, plasma only was known to be a collection of highly electrified air. Back then, over 50 years ago, the explanation was about it. But a lot of physicists were very interested in it. Plasma is the fourth state of matter, with solids, liquids, and gases being the others. The modern, overwhelming, simplistic definition of plasma is that it is a highly charged ball of gas, but that's misleading. Plasma is an ionized mixture of excited atoms that have positive charges. Plasma is so exotic that it represents a completely different state of matter. Normal gas is composed of atoms and molecules that have a neutral charge. In plasma, electrons are ripped from atoms, creating a soup of positively charged ion and swirling electrons that produce powerful electrostatic interactions within a confined space. In essence, it is a swirling mix of superheated gas and electrons. Plasma takes on a fluid-like, changeable shape, often becomes magnetic, and an EMF forms around it like a containment field. Plasma can conduct electricity, and its electromagnetic waves can exert influence at a great distance. Plasmas are influenced by both natural and artificial magnetic fields. Close human interaction with plasma has been shown to produce a multitude of mystical experiences. Research has shown that the strange experiences of humans have when near powerful plasma are due to the effects of EMFs on the neural processes. Makes me wonder what I'm going through. The hold on a second here. The Condine sign coded. I think it's the Condine report or the Coden report. It's CONDIGN. You could either say Condine report or Coden report. Codine report. Well, I'm going to say Codine because it's, but price is pronounced differently. Anyways, the Condine report. And 2006, in response to a Freedom of Information request, the United Kingdom's Ministry of Defense declassified and released 460-page study called the Condine report. I can't say it, which evaluated the UFO activity over the United Kingdom from the late 1980s to the end of 2000. In the report, secretly issued first in 2000, UFOs are referred to as UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomena. The report attributed the source of genuine UAPs as exotic plasmas. The term exotic implies that the plasmas display characteristics that science cannot yet explain. In some cases, the plasmas rotate and flatten out into a disc shape, beams out different colored lights, and take on a myriad of other forms. In the report, it was conceded that the plasmas were not yet fully understood. Quote, dust plasmas, unquote, and Bayet plasmas were two types given close scrutiny in the report. They can be dense and seemingly fly. The report mentioned that plasmas were picked up on radar, moving quickly and in seemingly impossible angles, and were visible in various configurations. Sometimes they change shape quickly and dramatically. In the Condine report, also hinted that research was ongoing into possible military applications of the phenomena. In 1996 interview, I mentioned that over 3,000 studies had already been conducted on the effects of plasma and electromagnetic frequencies on humans, and that the U.S. government was sponsoring ongoing research for military applications. I also mentioned that the most important findings would never see the light of day. Some of that research has been published in military and technical journals contained in government repository libraries. I accidentally stumbled onto the research after accessing the government repository library at the University of Memphis in the early 1990s. But the studies often referenced other reports not available publicly. Specifically, many grant-funded reports are referenced in these published studies but are not publicly disseminated. Military plasma research. Today, the military has developed various technologies from the plasma research, and a lot of it has become known. My guess is that the public release of military applications is not accidental. In a 2018 article in Popular Mechanics summarized some of it. In the late 1990s, a pulsed impulsive kill laser was developed. It was designed to focus a large plasma burst, but it required too much energy to be practical. In 2000, a pulse energy projectile was developed that created a small fireball on a distant focal point. It was tested on animals and caused neurological impairment. In 2013, a plasma acoustic shield system was perfected. It produced a sustained plasma in the air that could be moved around and split into smaller plasmas. Also in 2013, they developed a laser-induced plasma effect, LIP, L-I-P-E, LIP. The frequencies of the induced plasma could produce a spoken message at a focal point. My hunch is that the LIP was created from the earlier research of Michael Persinger, who in 1997 was able to manipulate choices made by human subjects by using small EMFs that created spoken words heard by the subjects mentally. This is like beaming voices or thoughts into a person's head. And in 2018, the military created a scalable, compact, ultra-short pulse laser system. It produces flash bangs of plasma of any size and duration and causes skin pain and burning. It can also transmute verbal messages a mile in distance. That's probably what I'm going through. I can just imagine what the prick is doing it. They done it to me too, or it's doing it to me. Got set up. I got set up. Where is this? In the 2020 Popular Mechanics issue, a follow-up report on the U.S. Navy's new plasma-based missile fooling technology. The laser device was described to created three-dimensional plasma objects in the air that rotated, moved as directed, and could be picked up by radar. The plasmas can be tuned to any electromagnetic frequency signature desired and can create a ghost image of that is real but temporary. This was first reported by Forbes when they discovered that the U.S. Navy had filed a patent on the technology. All of this research was foreshadowed in the Condign report. Condign. The Condign report. Well, that might be an interesting thing to read. It might be boring as hell, too. The Gulf Breeze Light. Back in May 24, 1992, my wife and I were in Shoreline Park in Gulf Breeze, Florida, with 85 other people. We were there to see the Gulf Breeze UFO, a frequently appearing aerial light that locals called Bubba. It had appeared in the same spot 8 nights in a row. At 9:30 p.m., several people asserted that it would appear shortly and would last for 90 seconds. At 9:40 p.m., the light appeared several miles away to the southeast. It was very bright and intense and remained completely stationary. It was several times larger than Venus would appear in the sky. For the first 80 seconds, it pulsed slowly between the color of red and white. In the last 10 seconds, it expanded to 10 times its size, turning bright white, then disappeared instantly when a ring of sparkles appeared uniformly around the perimeter. Okay, and did not fade. Around the perimeter, it did not fade out. It was as if the light switch had turned it off. I gotta take a drink. There was no discernible noise. The light ceased its appearances shortly thereafter. I wrote that I suspect that it was the Office of Naval Research (ONR) study, and that they were probably studying the responses of the observers by planting researchers in the crowd. I reached that conclusion because both the Naval Aerospace Medical Research Laboratory, which is an arm of ONR, and Eglin, I don't know how to pronounce that. Am I saying it right? Eglin Air Force Base are located in the general area. So in that same area, there was the Office of Naval Research, a branch of it, the Naval Aerospace Medical Research Laboratory, and the Eglin Air Force Base. And I'm sure he's right about this. Back in 1972, 1973, I was in graduate school in psychology at Memphis State University, working as a research assistant. I was assigned by the department to work on a research grant study for the Pensacola ONR station. Another graduate student and I spent many weeks at several different naval air stations conducting tests on Navy pilots. I visited the Pensacola ONR lab only once. As young lowly research assistant back then, I was only able to talk to some of the lower naval research staff members at the ONR who were my age. I described a lot of the drug research I had conducted from 1970 to 1972, evaluating some of the newer hallucinogenic drugs that the DEA had sent to the university's pharmacology lab for study. In response, the young ONR staff members told me of their, quote, "I wonder what will happen if," and a quote, experiments. I was told that they routinely did studies just out of curiosity, just as we did. These are initial studies that are conducted when you have no idea what the outcome will be. For example, when confronted with something new with unknown effects, an informal study might be done quickly to answer the question, quote, "I wonder what will happen if we do this," end of quote. My hunch is that Baba was an early research project on plasma-created decoys and weapon systems. Oddly, as this chapter was being written, I was led by a colleague to a 1999 article in the New Scientist newsletter, in the New Scientist newsletter. In the article, it was claimed that in the late 1980s, a military research base in New Mexico had been experimenting with high-power lasers. By crossing the laser beams, they were able to create multiple glowing plasmas in the sky that could be moved around instantly in the sky. The objects could change shape and color and appeared to be solid objects when viewed from the government. My mind's thinking about the government and how they portray us from the ground or the sky. One possible conclusion here might be obvious to people who have become enthralled by the recent U.S. Navy pilot videos and reports of encounters with unknown objects. As related to prior chapters, the whole UFO phenomenon can be seen as a giant puzzle, and the military decoy research may be one piece to the puzzle. Yeah, you don't know who to trust. You really don't. But I tell you, channels that have like half a million, like there's several, like we could bring them up, but yeah, they're always showing these images of these supposed UFOs. They look an awful lot like plasma balls. Remember that. And they do have their military connections, because that's what the internet pretty much is. If you're an independent researcher like me, you're going to be pushed aside. You're never going to have a lot of people following you. You've been lucky to have 4,000 or 5,000 followers. By that time, anyways, they're going to take you down if you say the wrong thing. And how do I know that? Because it happened to me. Now, how many times? Okay. Living sentient plasmas. Plasma research has come a long way since the 1960s, but we are still scratching the surface in many ways. It's likely that there are more than a few different types of plasma. Some of them, as the British Condign report stated, are exotic. It is recognized that there is an interconnection between plasmas and human observers, and that the neurological interaction is under study. But no one expected physicists to assert that plasmas may be a form of intelligent life. In August 2007, 6 physicists published an article in the New Journal of Physics, a peer-reviewed publication, asserting that plasmas exhibit the characteristics of a type of living intelligent or inorganic matter. It has been known that dusty plasma, a type of exotic plasma formed from cosmic or other forms of dust, develop internal crystalline structures. However, the physicists found that the crystalline structures displayed the characteristics of living organisms. They formed an internal double helix DNA-like formation, showed autonomous behavior, and had both reproductive and evolutionary properties. The crystals that formed within the plasmas often started a corkscrew shape and then evolved into a recognizable shape of DNA, the double helix. It was a self-organizing, autonomous process similar to how DNA forms in organic life. The idea of reproduction comes from the observation that the double helix were seen to split and create duplicates of themselves, which is identical to cellular reproduction in organic life. The duplicates, in turn, continue to replicate in the same manner. The idea of evolution emerged when the physicists observed weaker crystalline structures being to disintegrate, leaving behind the stronger, more stable structures. These processes continued along as energy supporting the plasma was sustained. In brief, plasma exhibits all the fundamental characteristics of being alive. A follow-up article citing this research ended with, quote, "The question is then raised, given their fragility and slow pace of development, can they become intelligent or sentient?" That, of course, was not the first time such ideas have been proposed. In 1989, Paul Devereux related an encounter with ball lightning reported by two professors at the University of Illinois at Chicago. Ball lightning is a long recognized plasma formed that remains enigmatic remains enigmatic to this day. The professors watched the basketball-sized bubble of light squeeze through a 1-inch window crack into a cabin. The exterior of the bubble was a yellowish-white light, while the interior of the object was dark orange. As the object floated through, by the way, this is an extremely important chapter. It really is. So anyways, I just now lost my place. Okay, as the object floated through the room, the two saw what looked like whirling worms in the interior of the plasma. The object moved to the other side of the room and simply shrank down and disappeared into the floor. Whirling worms. Worms. From this description, it would appear that what these two professors saw were a crystalline structure forming into a corkscrew-shaped double helix inside the plasma. Few ufologists, especially the extraterrestrial proponents, seriously consider plasma as a key to understanding UFOs, and the same can probably be said for those who maintain interest in paranormal phenomena. It is also likely that many people will scoff at the idea of plasmas having an intelligence. Of course, plasmas are primarily a type of natural phenomena. We know through research that they interact with human perceptance. Okay. Precipitants. Human precipitants. This interaction occurs through electromagnetic influence on the brain chemistry. It is not really a new idea and would probably have been asserted by both Carl Jung and the great ufologist John Keel. Had they known more about plasma at the time, both Keel and Young cited electromagnetism as the key to it all. Okay, that's the end of that. Man, do I suck at reading. Fuck. Anyways, it's important stuff regardless if anybody else hears it, because of my own research. And I hope somebody gets something out of this.
You're going to try, go all the way. Otherwise, don't even start. If you're going to try, go all the way. This could mean losing girlfriends, wives, relatives, jobs, and maybe your mind.
Jesus.